Okay, here I got my 200. It's 1975. I don't think that front end has ever been moved since it was new. There's no evidence that it ever has been. It was set on wide rows, and I want to narrow it up. So I've already loosened this side. It was kind of a tough job at first. You know, you got this, well, there's a big plate that sits here, 2 bolts that go through holes like this. It's moved some because I've moved it now. And I jacked it up to do it because it was packed full of dirt. And then there's 1 bolt, see where the mark is there. Pull that bolt, and these 2 bolts, and what you're supposed to do is take one of these 2 bolts, which is a square-headed bolt. Like if you want to move it out, you stick the bolt here, you turn the wheel the way it is, stick the bolt here, and it's supposed to push it out. If you want to go in, you turn this so the wheels turn the other way and drop the bolt, and that'll pull it in. If you've never done it, I wouldn't recommend using this is a junk bolt from another tractor, but the threads are all shot. But I would use a grade 8 standard bolt, because if you break your nice square-headed one, you lose your square-headed one. Although a standard will still work in there. But if you want to keep your original bolt. So what I had to do is take my air hammer and a little bit with this maul, and I oiled it up. I air hammered a lot right here. Then I did the whole underside, because otherwise you can do here too. You're just going to mar it all up. But that's what I did. And I hit it with the sledgehammer in a few spots. You can't even tell where. And along here. And then still couldn't get it to move. So what I did then is I got this narrow crowbar. So if you got to grind one down, because the regular crowbar ain't going to fit. But you can get in here where this, I got it in a little bit now. But you can move it by getting in here. That actually puts more pressure on it. You got more torque than using the power steering if you're full of dirt. Once you get it to rock, budge I got it to budge like 1/8 of an inch or so. Then I took the maul, and I tapped it back in. Did that 2 or 3 times. Then I got in the tractor, and I'll show you how it moves, how it's supposed to work. You know, this thing has never been moved, but if you move them every few years, it's supposed to work this way. I think back when they built these, farmers moved them more often. I remember my dad moving his D17 to cultivate or plow, rear wheels and all. And the older D17s got the old spin-outs, and they were a little tougher than... If this one had spin-outs, they're a lot easier. Like my D19's got the newer spin-outs. They don't get rusted. But I'll just show you. I'll start this up. Okay, now that's how it works. You can move it out where you need it. Or you can pull it in. So I'm going to clean that all up and take it right off. And then you're supposed to be able to... Then you're supposed to... And this will be another... Because it's rusted solid. And you can see my messy shop here, but... You're supposed to be able to loosen this next. After you bolt this where you want it. Then the power steering is supposed to suck this in or push this out. But, you know, this is original. You can imagine how stuck this is going to be. If you get a new tie rod, they don't have this nice cast clamp. So if you get a new tie rod, I'd recommend cutting this cast clamp off, putting it on your new inner tie rod, which is actually the outside tie rod inside on the tractor, but it's the tube. Putting that on, and maybe even running 2 clamps. They don't make them like the original. The marks aren't the same, so they won't line up with your deal with your holes here. So you just have to do measurements. But yeah, and the inside, the new inside ones are shorter than the original. I took the one I got back because it turns out I didn't need it on another tractor I was working on. But if I ever have to, I'll get a wagon one, cut that off, weld this original tube to it. Same thing here. I'm just going to keep original. You can weld them on and do a good job and make it look nice. If you can't get a decent tie rod, they're all made in China, you know. So anyway, so I'm going to be pulling this completely apart. For now, I'll probably knock this each end off here and get this in a vise, and I'll probably have to heat this, and I'll end up painting it. Heat it, get it apart, slather it up a little bit maybe. If you slather them up with antifreeze, they might slip on you. I've had them slip, but I think that was the new style clamps, and I've had them not slip, and I'm pretty sure that was the old style clamps. You can double clamp them. Have the old style with your new one. Put 2 clamps on, that pretty much solves that. But yeah, so there you go. Now I'm gonna have a hard time getting this out because I sheared it off at first, the very first time. Sheared that grade 8 bolt off, which I'm glad I kept my original ones. I did not use them. But yeah, once I get this one done, so I want it to plant with, and they were set at wide. I did the rear a long time ago, but the front ones, I'll have to do this side. Hopefully it won't be as tough, but I already know how to break them loose. So that pry bar in that hole, catching the end of the square shaft, the rectangle shaft, catching that through that hole is really what, once I got it to budge a tiny bit, I knew the battle was won. So someday I'll go through and I'll have the 190 sitting next to the 200, and I'll show you the differences from a 200 to a 190. And that 190 I got is an early 1965, so there's going to be quite a bit of differences, quite a few. They'll look similar, but there's plenty of differences. In fact, mine's the non-turbo version. And then I should drive my brother's got a Series 3 land handler. And this is a 1975 200, so the last year they built them. So it's got more differences than the early 200s. But that's what I have for you. That's all.